Hello my friend, today I have something rather special because this is actually 100th video on this channel. So we will be taking a look at the king of micro four thirds lenses, the Panasonic Leica DG ELMARIT 200mm f2.8 power OIS. As usually, we will take a look at the performance of this lens with Panasonic G9, at the build quality and handling, optical characteristics, autofocus, both teleconverters and other important features to find out how good really is the most expensive micro four thirds lens ever made. 200mm gives you the same field of view as 400mm lens on full frame. It is very popular telephoto focal length, suitable for sports and wildlife. 1.4 times teleconverter is also included with this lens. It changes the focal length to 280mm or 560mm full frame equivalent while taking away one stop of aperture. 2 times converter is available separately, that gives you 400mm or 800mm full frame equivalent focal length while taking away 2 stops of aperture. Just like other two Panasonic Leica lenses that I've previously tested, the build quality of 200mm f2.8 is excellent. It is full metal construction, it feels absolutely solid, and it goes without saying that the mount is metal as well, and this lens is fully weather sealed of course, so it is splash proof, dust proof and also freeze proof. This lens also has tripod mount for better distribution of the weight while it is mounted on tripod. It can be removed or you can freely rotate the tripod leg around the lens and secure its position using a thumb screw. Mounted on Panasonic G9 with battery grip attached, which is the best match for this lens, the handling is really good for a lens of this size and handheld shooting is not a problem at all. This lens is 174mm long and it weighs 1245 grams, which is quite big and heavy for micro four thirds lenses. But when you compare it to full-frame 400mm f2.8 lenses, it is less than third of the weight and length, even though that those lenses are not directly comparable because of the crop. So just like the 50 to 200mm f2.8 to 4 Leica that I've tested recently, it is an interesting compromise between the focal range, maximal aperture, the size and the weight. In terms of handling, there is actually a lot to talk about here. There is a focusing ring of course, it is very wide and extremely smooth with perfect amount of resistance, and it is probably the best focus by wire manual focusing that I have tested so far. As expected, there are also switches for turning both autofocus and image stabilization on and off. There is also a focus limiter that you can use to choose between full range or limiting the focusing from 3 meters to infinity, which will make focusing a bit faster. There is also a function button and switch that controls functionality of this button. You can either set it to specific focus distance and recall that focus distance by pressing the function button, or you can set it as function button in the camera menu. I also really like the aperture ring. If you set an aperture on this ring, it will override the setting in your camera, but if you just want to use the dial on the camera, you can set it to A position and control the aperture in your camera. Very large lens hood is included as well. Fortunately, it is possible to store it in reverse position and it is secured by locking screw. Let's move on to the optical performance. I have tested it with 20 megapixel sensor in the G9 and I will say right away that the optical performance of this lens is near perfect. The sharpness from wide open at f2.8 is fantastic across the frame, so is the contrast. There is actually not much to talk about here. Stopped down to f4 it is even a tiny bit sharper, at f5.6 the sharpness is similar to f4. At f8 the diffraction starts to appear, but there is not many reasons to use apertures above f5.6 on this lens. The sharpness is also very uniform across the frame, so you can use it anywhere from f2.8 to f5.6. With 1.4 times teleconverter at f4, which is now the lowest aperture, the sharpness in the center of the frame is still great. The corner sharpness is slightly lower, but this is still a very good result. At f5.6 the sharpness is a bit better, but again it is perfectly fine to use it wide open. With 2 times teleconverter, the brightest aperture available is f5.6 and the sharpness is still really good. It is slightly lower, but this combination is still perfectly usable wide open. Regarding the chromatic aberration, distortion and vignetting, these are fixed in the camera even in RAWs, and the amount left after the correction is negligible. Leica 200mm also has a lot of character, the color rendition is very nice, the blurred background is extremely smooth, so it looks amazing, and at this focal length it is really easy to compress the background. The autofocus on this lens in combination with Panasonic G9 is blazing fast, it goes through whole focal range extremely fast, it has no problems with going from close distance to far distance, and it is very accurate as well. I have tested it for sports shooting, and even though I am not a sports photographer by any means, I was able to get very high keeper rate. The autofocus also works well in video, especially the single point is very accurate and also quite fast, so in combination with that bright aperture, this could actually be a really good lens for shooting documentaries. Another great thing about this lens is the image stabilization. It works together with great 6.5 stop in-body image stabilization in Panasonic G9, and especially when using 2x teleconverter, the effectivity of this combined stabilization is great, and at such focal length, the image stabilization is actually important even for keeping the subject in frame while looking through the viewfinder. Kind of advantage of this lens is also that you can combine it with the G9, which is maybe a bit underrated, but fully featured camera with really good sensor, very fast, and after the update also reliable autofocus, great handling. It can shoot up to 20 frames per second RAW with continuous autofocus and automatic exposure. The buffer is very large. It has two UHS-2 card slots and so on. So together with this Leica 200mm f2.8, it is indeed a great combination. To sum up this review, this lens is especially important for Panasonic because I think that one of the reasons why they made this lens was just to prove that they can make a top-class lens and establish their Lumix brand as relevant option for stills as well, and I think that they have succeeded. Optically, it is an outstanding lens, super sharp from wide open, with great contrast and color rendition, the build quality is great, the autofocus is very fast, the image stabilization is very effective as well. It is definitely not a cheap lens, and even though it doesn't directly compete with full-frame 400mm f2.8 lenses, it is less than a third of the price of most of these lenses, and also about a third of the weight, so it is quite interesting compromise and proposition. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.